Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, at Predictive, we're doing a full forensic audit on a predictive analytics model, specifically an NFL Week 9 model that landed exactly 7-7.
Yeah, 50%. Basically a coin flip outcome, which is humbling, to say the least.
Absolutely. Indistinguishable from random chance.
But this isn't just about, throwing our hands up. This deep dive is really a transparency exercise. We need to dig into why it went wrong, especially those high-confidence picks that fail.
And crucially, figure out what systemic changes are needed. How does the model get smarter from this?
Exactly. It's a diagnostic tool, really. The 7-7 result tells us something important about the underlying logic.
So if you're interested in how these complex models actually learn, how they evolve from mistakes, and how you separate real signal from, well, statistical noise,
Yeah.
you're definitely in the right place.
Right.
But let's not just jump straight into the gloom. Before we dissect the failures, what did the model actually get right? Because it wasn't all random misses.
No, definitely not. And what's interesting is that some of the core logic, the foundational principles, actually held up quite well. Probably the biggest success was identifying the 7-1 Indianapolis Colts as, well, a paper tiger.
That felt like a huge call at the time.
Mhm.
Betting against a 7-1 team, #1 offense. What was the data point that drove that confidence?
It boiled down to one specific thing, their turnover differential. It was completely unsustainable, +9, second best in the league.
Okay.
The model basically screamed that this was subsidized success, fueled by luck that was bound to reverse, catastrophic negative regression was coming.
And it absolutely did. The Colts just melted down against Pittsburgh, 6 turnovers.
6 turnovers. Daniel Jones had, 5 himself? It was a textbook validation of the turnover economy thesis.
But with a caveat, right?
Yes, a crucial one. It seems most potent when you're looking at an extreme positive outlier, like the Colts were, who are then facing a really opportunistic defense. The Steelers' secondary had just gotten healthy. In that specific context, the model nailed it.
Okay, so that's one type of success. The model also hit 2 other high-confidence picks correctly. Chargers over Titans, Rams over Saints. But that was based on something different, wasn't it?
Totally different logic.
Yeah.
That was the qualitative override. We called it the collapsing franchises thesis.
So overriding the season-long numbers.
Essentially, yes. The argument was that the historical data for the Titans and Saints had become, obsolete. Irrelevant, really, because of major organizational shifts.
Right. The Titans had just fired their coach. Looked like they were in full seller mode.
Total teardown. And the Saints, that felt like a classic rookie sacrifice game. They benched their starter, threw rookie Tyler Show out there against the Rams' #3 defense, not exactly setting him up for success.
And both games were blowouts. Chargers won easily, Rams won easily.
Yeah, emphatic wins. So this showed the model can be sound when it correctly identifies that kind of organizational collapse. It knows when the data itself is, broken or unreliable.
Okay, but let me push back on that a little. Relying on a qualitative override on almost instinct, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of a predictive model? How do you decide when to trust the gut feeling over the numbers?
That's a fair challenge, but it's about modeling context, not just raw numbers. The rule isn't simply ignore the data. It's more like data generated by a stable, predictable system is more reliable than data from a system that's currently falling apart. So we're trying to model the stability of the system producing the data. Identifying that collapse becomes a measurable factor that tells you the past performance metrics might not mean much anymore.
Okay, I see the distinction. Modeling the stability of the inputs. That makes sense. All right, let's pivot to the less comfortable part, the failures.
Right.
That 50% miss rate on high confidence, picks 2 right, 2 wrong. That's the real issue here. It suggests flawed logic, not just bad luck.
Agreed. That's where the toughest lessons are. Let's start with Carolina beating Green Bay. The model had the Packers as high confidence, calling it a total mismatch.
And the reasoning seems simple, right? Packers top 5 offense against the Panthers struggling, like bottom 5 offense. So where did the model go wrong? What were the specific avoidable errors?
There were 2 big ones, really. First, the model just overweighted that Packers offensive ranking. It looked great on the surface, but it was actually pretty inefficient when it mattered.
How so?
They weren't just missing chances, they were actively squandering them. 3 straight drives, stalled inside the Panthers' 30-yard line, field goals instead of touchdowns, bad penalties, poor red zone plays. The offense was statistically good, maybe, but operationally it had problems the model didn't see.
Okay, so it wasn't as dominant as the raw stat suggested. What was the second failure? You mentioned an emerging variable.
Yeah, this was a big miss. We didn't account for Rico Dowdle, the Panthers running back.
Ah.
The analysis was kind of obsessed with Carolina's QB situation,
Yeah.
and it just completely missed the personnel shift in the backfield. Dowdle takes over as the starter, and bam, he runs 25 times for 130 yards against what was supposed to be a top 3 run defense.
Ouch. So the confidence was built on, like, outdated team averages.
Exactly. Too surface level. It ignored the critical week-to-week matchup stuff, the personnel changes that actually decided the game. Should have been downgraded.
All right, the second high confidence miss. Minnesota beating Detroit. You said this one was even more egregious.
Yeah, because this wasn't just bad analysis. It was a failure of basic data integrity right from the start.
How do you mean?
The model's entire premise for fading the Vikings was factually wrong. It flagged QB J.J. McCarthy as a rookie sacrifice, making his first start.
But he wasn't a rookie.
No. He's a second-year guy, coming back from an injury. He'd played before, shown he was competent. This wasn't some collapsing team throwing a lamb to the slaughter. It was a decent, well-coached team getting a capable quarterback back. Big difference.
Okay, so the input data was just wrong.
Hmm.
But beyond that, was there something else the model missed?
Oh, absolutely. It completely ignored the single biggest factor in that game, the Flores effect.
Brian Flores, the Vikings DC. His defense.
Yeah. His super aggressive, high blitz scheme just absolutely manhandled Detroit. They shut down the Lions' great run game, pressured Jared Goff, like a season high 20 times. Like the Vikings won that game entirely because of their defense and that specific scheme.
And the model had no way to account for that kind of outlier scheme.
None whatsoever. It couldn't tell the difference between a genuinely collapsing team like the Saints, where the data was obsolete, and a competent team like the Vikings using a disruptive, game-altering scheme. Big flaw.
Okay, let's broaden out from the high confidence picks. Some lower confidence failures also revealed these systemic fallacies that need fixing, like Arizona beating Dallas even without Kyler Murray. That highlighted what you're calling the backup QB fallacy.
Right. The model actually got parts of it right. It knew Murray would be out. It even correctly identified the Cowboys' weakness, their banged-up safety group.
But it drew the wrong conclusion.
Completely wrong. Because it treated the backup QB, Jacoby Brissett, as just a generic negative. Like, all backups are equally bad.
Which he absolutely isn't. Brissett is arguably one of the best backups in the league. A high-level bridge guy.
Exactly. And what did he do? He exploited the exact weakness the report flagged those injured safeties, lit them up for 260-plus yards, 3 touchdowns. The model saw the vulnerability but completely misjudged the capability of the player attacking it because it just lumped all backups together.
Failed to understand the quality of the backup.
Precisely. It lacked nuance.
And then there was the Seattle-Washington game. Seahawks won big. Model picked Washington. This highlighted the volatility trap.
Yeah, this one might be the cardinal sin analytically for the week. We confuse noise for signal.
Okay, unpack that. The model bet against Seattle, right? Fading their high-scoring offense.
Yes, because they had this dangerously poor -4 turnover differential leading into the game. The model basically assumed that the turnover differential, which is super volatile week to week, was the real signal that Seattle was fundamentally sloppy.
And it assumed their elite offense was just luck, noise.
Pretty much. It figured the offense was a fluke, due for regression, and the turnovers revealed their true nature.
But the exact opposite happened.
The exact opposite. The offense was the stable, predictive signal. Sam Darnold played a near-perfect game, 4 touchdowns, no picks. The turnovers were the temporary noise. We bet against the stable, proven, metric, elite offensive efficiency because we overreacted to the volatile, unpredictable, metric turnover luck.
That feels like a really fundamental error in statistical thinking, not just football.
It is. It's a classic analytical pitfall. You have to weight stability properly. Don't chase the chaos.
Now, just for context, we should quickly mention the 2 losses that probably were unavoidable, the real bad beats.
Right. The Falcons' loss came down to, like, a missed extra point and a weird intentional grounding penalty on the final drive. Stochastic stuff.
Random events.
Okay.
And the Texans' pick was basically nullified the second C.J. Stroud got hurt mid-game.
Yeah, you can't model for in-game injuries like that or freak plays. Those happen. But the other 5 failures, those were logic errors. Avoidable.
Okay, so 5 avoidable failures. That means 5 clear areas for improvement. The 7-7 wasn't just bad luck. It was like you said, a diagnostic. It's stress-tested the assumptions.
And found them wanting in key areas. Lazy categorization, bad weighting, ignoring crucial context.
So let's get to the fixes. What's actionable? What's the first major change coming to the model based on this audit?
Mandate number 1, we have to kill the backup QB fallacy immediately.
Oh,
We're replacing the simple binary QB variable, basic starter or backup, with a much more granular, tiered, context-aware QB variable.
okay. Tiered. How does that work? Give us an example.
So think like, Tier 1 is your elite game-changing QBs. Tier 2 might be solid starters. Tier 3 would be these high-end backups or bridge guys like Brissett guys who can definitely execute a game plan and exploit weaknesses. Then maybe Tier 4 is lower-end starters, and Tier 5 is your true replacement level guys, your rookie sacrifices.
Gotcha. So Brissett immediately gets recategorized as, say, Tier 3.
Exactly, and the model understands he's capable. That instantly fixes the logic on the Dallas prediction. And it also fixes the Detroit mistake, right? McCarthy moves out of that Tier 5 sacrifice category into maybe Tier 3 or 4, reflecting his actual competency.
Right, much more operational nuance. Okay, fix number 1, better QB tiers. What's number 2? Needs to address that volatility trap, the Seattle issue.
Number 2 is a fundamental reweighting. We need to recalibrate regression, prioritize stability over volatility. Meaning, we are significantly changing how the model values different inputs. Stable play-by-play efficiency metrics are now the primary signal of a team's true quality.
And by efficiency metrics, you mean things like EPA per play, DVOA. Can you quickly explain those for listeners?
Yes. Sure. EPA is expected points added. It measures how much closer statistically a team got to scoring on any given play. DVOA is defense-adjusted value over average. It compares a team's performance on every single play to a league baseline, adjusted for opponent quality. They're much better at capturing down-to-down consistency and predicting future success than, say, just total yards or points.
Okay, so EPA and DVOA become king.
They become the core signal. And volatile stuff like week-to-week turnover differential, that gets dramatically downgraded. It's treated as secondary noise, not the primary driver of predictions.
And that one change would have flipped the Seattle pick.
Absolutely. It would have correctly valued the Seahawks' consistently high efficiency metrics over their temporary turnover problem. It would have seen them as a good, efficient team having a few unlucky bounces, not a fundamentally flawed team.
Makes sense. Value the signal, discount the noise. Okay, one more major fix needed, related to that Vikings-Lions game.
Yes. We need to account for those outlier schemes, the Flores effect. So, fix number 3 is to integrate a scheme factor override. The model failed against Minnesota because it had zero way to quantify the impact of a statistically significant unusual system.
Like Flores' super high blitz rate.
Exactly. Or maybe a unique offensive formation, or a defense that plays cover 2 90% of the time. These outlier systems create variance that standard stats often miss.
So how does the override work? Is it purely qualitative again?
It's a flag, basically. We integrate variables that track these statistically significant schematic outliers, top 5 bliss rates, extreme zone min usage, etc. If a matchup involves one of these outlier systems, the model flags it.
And what does the flag do?
It could trigger a confidence downgrade, or maybe even suggest avoiding the game entirely. For the Minnesota-Detroit game, it would have immediately flagged the Vikings' defense as a high variance element, preventing that disastrous high confidence label.
Got it. Making the model smarter about context, not just crunching raw numbers.
That's the whole goal. These fixes aren't about adding more data. They're about adding more intelligence understanding the quality and context of the data we already have.
So let's bring this home. We've audited the 7-7 week, identified the flaws, outlined the fixes. What does this all mean for you, the listener? Maybe thinking about your own analysis, your own decisions.
I think the big takeaway is that data, even tons of it, isn't enough on its own. It needs that layer of human-informed context and, crucially, proper analytical weighting.
Right.
The failures we talked about weren't random coin flips. They were logical errors, relying on lazy surface-level stats like with the Packers, fundamentally misunderstanding variables like with the backup QBs, and maybe most importantly, prioritizing volatile noise like turnovers over stable signals like efficiency.
The model's core wasn't necessarily broken, but its application was flawed.
Exactly. It was overweighting the wrong things, ignoring critical context, prioritizing the sheer volume of data over the stability and reliability of that data.
And it feels like the final thought here. This deep dive really hammered home that the biggest mistake might have been trusting the volume of data over the stability of the metrics. If that kind of volatility like turnover luck is just statistical noise, How often are we, maybe in our own work or analysis of life, mistaking that temporary chaotic noise for a genuine signal?
Mm, good question.
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.